Good evening. Thank you, Wally. It's wonderful to see you all here tonight, and it is so encouraging to be here in a capacity room with over 400 men and women to celebrate our shared values of life, marriage, and religious liberty. I can remember the first time I had that experience when, like many of you here tonight, I was invited to be a guest at an MFI banquet. Now, just a word of caution, if Rob Bradley, who's the chair of our recruitment committee, has told you he wants to speak with you after dinner, be careful. There's no telling where that might lead. Now, much of the work we do here at MFI is engaging in the culture wars. So it is fitting that we were founded over 20 years ago by a Navy swiftboat captain, and that we've been led for the past decade by an Air Force fighter pilot. It is an honor to join that lineage myself as a simple Marine attorney to continue the fight for our shared family values here in the Commonwealth. Now, what do we mean by family values? Well, specifically, the three main pillars we work to promote are the sanctity of life, the dignity of natural marriage, and our constitutional rights to religious liberty. And we do this through research, education, and advocacy. Now, a critical part of our mission is to advocate for our shared family values in the halls of power in Boston. As you can imagine, Beacon Hill and the State House is often hostile territory for our values. But I'm proud to say that with the steadfast support of pro-family legislators from both parties, this session, we were able to make a difference in our Commonwealth's laws. Through legislative testimony, issue briefs, lobbying, and mobilizing the grassroots to contact their elected officials, we fought against bills that anti-family activists pushed hard to get passed, and we stopped them. Abortion activists tried to pass a bill that would have lowered the age of consent for abortion by 2 years, down to age 16, cutting parents out of their daughters' lives at a time when they need them the most. And Planned Parenthood pushed a bill that would have implemented its depraved sex ed curricula in every public school in Massachusetts, not just in senior high, but all the way down to kindergartens as well. Now, on those two bills in particular, we were proud to work with our friends at Massachusetts Citizens for Life. And Ann Fox, MCFL's president, is with us this evening. Please join me in thanking her for her tremendous work on the issues of life. We also continued our stand against the infamous bathroom bill legislation, which would have made all public restrooms and locker rooms in Massachusetts essentially gender neutral. And we faced a new threat this year, a bill that would have classified Christian-based counseling for children struggling with same-sex attraction as child abuse. But we weren't alone in that fight either. Brian Kamaker, president of Mass Resistance, who's also with us tonight, fought hard against those two bills. Brian, thank you for your work. Together, we raised the alarm in Massachusetts, you responded, and we stopped those bills. But our work is not political alone. We also serve as a voice for family values in the public square. Time and again, MFI is the go-to organization for Boston media to get the pro-family perspective on many of the most contentious issues of our day. And when I first learned about MFI years ago, it was a great encouragement, because when I saw my predecessor, now MFI's President Emeritus, on TV articulating my values, or read MFI's commentary in the news, I knew there was hope for our Commonwealth, and I was not alone. This year, we've continued to be the voice for family values in Massachusetts. Winsome, but firm, with multiple TV appearances and dozens of news mentions, both locally and nationally, online and in print. Now, I'm delighted to say that Chris has not slowed down a bit since he allegedly retired. Instead, he has helped to lead a broad coalition to stop predatory gambling from coming to our Commonwealth. Now, interestingly, many of the people in this broad coalition that are working alongside with Chris now would not agree with us on many of our issues. And yet, because of the way Chris carried himself in the past and the way he led MFI as an organization, they respect him. And they're happy to join forces with us now in pursuit of this common goal. And as I'm sure Chris will remind all of us, vote yes on question 3 in November. Now, as we work to promote and preserve family values in our culture, we know we can't put a price tag on the traditional family as an institution, but we are able to count the costs, both economically and socially, of family decline in our Commonwealth. And so, as part of our research and education mission, we are publishing a brand new report on the costs of family decline, particularly the problem of fatherlessness here in Massachusetts. Traditional family values, marriage, fidelity, sexual purity, all have objective, measurable value to our culture and to our communities. The census and social science data back that up, and we have made the case with the latest information available. Tragically, we see that over 35% of newborn children in Massachusetts will enter the world without a married mother or father. And this leads to the increasing number of children who have to grow up without the benefit of both a mother and a father in the home. The erosion of our Judeo-Christian values from our cultural and political landscape has led to the decline of the family. And this report shows how it's children, often the most vulnerable among us, who suffer the most from this. Now, we have copies of the report available for you as you leave this evening, and I encourage you to take one, to read it, and then give it to your priest or pastor. There's actually pretty good sermon material in there. And then give it to your state legislator. It's a good tool for them to learn that our family values are important to everyone. And it's also a non-confrontational way to let them know that you, as their constituent, support the work and mission of MFI. Now, I don't need any statistics to convince you how important mothers are. And in May, we had the pleasure of sponsoring a Mother's Day tea for over 300 women and their daughters. Mothers are the heart of any family. And we took this opportunity to celebrate motherhood and encourage them in the vital work they do for our families. At that event, we recognized the wife of one of our board members and a mother of 6 for not just talking about family values, but for living them out, even when it's difficult. Doctors said that her 7th child, even if she survived the pregnancy, would not live. And despite the undercurrent of our culture that said she should terminate her troubled pregnancy, Missy and her husband Alan chose to trust the Lord and embrace life. And through the miracle of prayer, they were able to spend 7 precious hours with their daughter, Selah Rose, before she was taken up to heaven. Therefore, we were honored to present our Esther Award to Missy Ringette for putting the life and welfare of her child before her own and being a witness, especially to the doctors and nurses she encountered, to what living out her faith looks like. Missy, thank you for your example to all of us. Now, this past spring, I know that many of you, as Wally mentioned, followed closely the public ordeal of the Pelletier family, whose 14-year-old daughter, Justina, was essentially kidnapped by the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families. The psychologist involved incredibly referred to this as a parentectomy. Now, when the news of this tragedy first broke, another of our board members, Kim and Compo, called me late that night and said, "Andrew, we have to do something to help this family." When Kim talks, we listen. So we reached out to our allies in the state legislature, who were also deeply concerned about this young girl separated from her parents, but needed to know what was really going on. At MFI, we were able to draw upon our existing relationship with National Legal Center Liberty Counsel, who represented the Pelletiers. And so we put together a conference call that assured all of us that the incredible claims of this family were legitimate. Armed with that knowledge, pro-family legislators stepped into action and worked tirelessly as a voice for this family in the Massachusetts halls of power. MFI continued to work behind the scenes to help Justina, and after a year and a half in isolation in DCF, I'm happy to say this summer she finally returned home. Yet this case, and others like it, coming to light across the nation, remain a stunning example of the serious threat to our rights as parents and to the integrity of the family posed by an expansive and at times arrogant government bureaucracy. But not only must we be concerned about parental rights, but increasingly our First Amendment freedoms as people of faith are coming under threat. This year, 2 private Christian schools in Massachusetts came under attack for their religious beliefs. Fontbonne Academy, a Christian all-girls school in Milton, and Gordon College, a non-denominational Christian school in Wenham, both faced hostile action by government entities due to their policies of simply only hiring individuals whose conduct conformed to traditional Christian standards. MFI quickly came to the defense of both institutions publicly, and in the case of Gordon, we've been able to help rally support for the school. As an alumnus of Gordon myself, I'm proud to say that Gordon College is standing strong. And we are honored to have several members of Gordon College's Board of Trustees with us tonight, as well as many members of the broader Gordon community. And I want to thank you all for your faithfulness and your courage, and know that we will be joining you and lifting you up in prayer as you face the months ahead. But regardless of what happens to Gordon in the long run, there will be other attacks like this. We know that in the coming years, there will be movements to harass and intimidate smaller Christian schools who don't have the resources to fight back against this type of religious discrimination. And that is why, in the months ahead, MFI will be forming a team of local Massachusetts attorneys, experts in this area of constitutional law, and in partnership with our national allies at Alliance Defending Freedom and Liberty Council, to make sure that our local Christian institutions have the resources and defense they deserve. Now, so much of the work we do, we cannot do alone. By ourselves, my staff and I cannot change the culture or laws in Massachusetts. You and the tens of thousands like you across the Commonwealth will. We must reach out to our churches and help them educate and mobilize people of faith to take action in moments of need, much like our patriot forefathers who dropped their plows and grabbed their rifles when called upon. But that is why over the next year, MFI will be completing a brand new, biblically based small group curriculum that educates and informs people of faith about the specific challenges to our family values here in Massachusetts from the perspectives of Scripture, culture, law, and politics, and teaches how to serve effectively as an advocate for our shared values. MFI is honored to serve as the voice for family values in Massachusetts, but when you join your voice to ours, it becomes a loud chorus that cannot be ignored. Now, growing up on Boston's North Shore, I spent many a summer day building sandcastles up at Salisbury Beach, battling in vain against a rising tide. And sometimes it may feel like that's what we're doing as we fight for family values here in Massachusetts. But that's actually not a bad metaphor, because as citizens of this coastal state, we know that eventually the tide must recede. And I believe the tide of anti-family hostility we're facing now will ultimately recede, even here in Massachusetts. Let's work together to make sure that our families, our values, and our culture are still intact when the waters roll back.